everybody, I'm Tabitha, and today we're talking story ideas. So today I'm doing the story idea tag, which was actually created over a year ago by Bethany Atazada and By the Brook. I will tag both of their original videos down below so that you can check them out. Why am I bringing this back today if it's been over a year? That's a good question. Basically, there's two reasons. Number one, I really feel like talking about my work in progress, and number two, I want to hear about all of yours. So if you're watching this and you feel like talking about your work in progress, I'm hoping you'll take this story idea tag and run with it. Just make sure you let me know so that I can subscribe to your channel and watch your video. Question number one. What is the story idea that you're working on right now? So right now, the story idea of mine that's getting the most focus from me is what I keep calling my magical YA. It's basically dual storyline point of views about two magical girls in a competition for one magical job. But after brainstorming with my writing group and some world building activities to help me really make sure I understood this magical world that I've thrown them in, I've decided to add a third strong magical girl into this storyline. Don't worry, she's different than the other two, and she's definitely bringing something more to the story, but right now that's what I'm doing, is playing with that third storyline and figuring out how that meshes in with the other two. If that sounds like an incredibly huge undertaking, it's because it is. And there are definitely days where I regret adding the third one, and then there are days where the chapter is amazing and it brings so much to the story, and I'm so happy I did it. And fans of Kingdom of Ron, don't worry. I can also tell you that I am working on that series. As of right now, the third story, title coming soon, is with beta readers. The fourth one has been written and drafted, first draft, and it's sitting and simmering until we get the third one figured out, and then we'll come back to it. And I'm going to be ready here pretty quick to pick up the fifth and final book in the series and turn that outline into a first draft. This is always a fun series to work on and talk about, especially because some people, some fans don't understand how long it takes a book to go from idea to book. And I feel like the fact that books 1 and 2 are available now, and 3 is with betas, and 4 is drafted, and 5 is outlined, is kind of proof that this process is really long and it takes a while. But I haven't given up, and I am still working on that one. In fact, it's one of my personal goals for 2019 to get all 5 books in the series at least first drafted. So I'm hoping to hit that goal. I'm working on it for you. Okay, question number 2. Do your ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? For me, this heavily depends on the story. I have been in a lot of those different situations for a lot of different story ideas. So I can talk about a few of mine just to kind of give you an idea of where they all came from. The Kingdom of Ron series was definitely world building first. The Kingdom of Ron as a whole and their 5 realms kind of came to me first. For projection, the idea for the plot, the idea for the conflict of the story sort of came first. This whole idea, in fact, it was a conversation with a friend. Hi, Mel, if you're watching. This was a conversation with a friend that came about with, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could send a memory of something you had directly to someone else so that they could watch it the way you watched it? That's really sort of where the idea for projection came from. For 30 Days Without Wings, the idea of a character came first, just a tiny little fairy who wanted nothing more than to try out a whole nother world, to try living for her dream, even if it meant she had to give up everything. So I've definitely been in all of those situations before. For my current work in progresses, though, for the magical YA, the characters came first. Angela and Tanya popped into my head as developed characters, and it wasn't until I decided to throw them in conflict with each other that I even really had a story. And I've talked about that a few times on idea journal videos. So for me, it really depends on the situation. I've been in all of those before. Question number 3. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start with the ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? I personally am very linear. I tend to write outlines in order from start to finish, chapter by chapter, and I've talked about that in my outlining videos before on this channel. However, this magical YA one really messed with my head. I think because I'm writing 2, now 3 separate characters who all had to be equally featured in the story, the outlining process doing chapter by chapter wasn't really working for me. What I ultimately ended up having to do in order to make Angela and Tanya work is to linear outline Angela's chapters, linear outline Tanya's chapters, and then weave them together to make the story. Which, again, if it sounds like it's an incredible undertaking, it's because it is. So I can only hope that this story comes out at the end worth all that work and headache that I've put into it, because these girls mess with my process from day one. Really. Question number 4. How do you know when you want to keep or dump a story idea? That's hard. You know why I think that's hard? Because in case you've never watched a video before, I am an irrational perfectionist. That means I know perfection is not possible, and yet I strive for it all the time. So for that reason, I don't think I ever have admitted to fully giving up on and or dumping a story idea before. That's not to say that I think my ideas are gold. In fact, probably the opposite of that is true. I never think anything I write is good. But what tends to happen is I will take a story idea if it falls flat, or if I suddenly don't connect with the character anymore, or if I don't like any of the ending choices that I'm thinking of, or if something just feels off and I can't figure out what, I will often take that story idea and shelve it. Give it a couple months, come back to it, read it again, and see if I can't get myself unstuck. And that has been pretty successful in the past. I will be honest, I have a lot of stories right now that are sitting on the shelf, gathering dust and letting them settle and seeing if maybe later when I come back to them, I'll fix the problem. I suppose it's possible that I would pick up a story, read it again, not have the answer, and having done that so many times, finally just give up on it. But I haven't done that yet. I'm confident in some of these ideas that I will be able to fix it. I just haven't quite gotten there yet. Sometimes I think it's a case of I've lost touch with the character, and sometimes I think it's a case of maybe my writing talent needs to improve a little before I have the tools to fix whatever is wrong with that particular story. I don't give up easily, I guess, is the point here. This is what I'm trying to say. I don't give up easily. So I have a lot of shelved stories. I don't have any totally dumped and abandoned stories. Number 5. How much of your original idea for a story is actually used once everything is finished? That's a good question. I think I am an underwriter first. So I think of a very small story, and then it becomes a chapter or a scene, which then becomes an outline, which then becomes chapters and a draft. And so really I start with the bare bones and then I add flesh to it and it gets bigger. So I would say because of that, most of what I start with ends up in the finished story. Basically the original idea still survives. It just has a lot more branches or a lot more flesh to it. That's just how I work. But I know some people work differently and have massive, crazy stories that have to be trimmed down a lot. I don't think that's happened. I was going to say I don't think that's happened to me, but then really Breaking Iselda and Redeeming Jordan were originally one book. But the whole idea survived. It just ended up having to be split into 2 stories once I realized I was dealing with 2 stories. I was dealing with Iselda's story and Jordan's story, and it needed to be split. So really most of it survives. Sometimes it just has to become a second book. Number 6. Do you share your book ideas with friends or keep them a secret? I feel like I sort of already kind of answered this by saying that the title for the Kingdom of Fron Book 3 would be coming soon. It has a title. It has a title on my documents. It's had a title for a really long time. My beta reader knows the title. A couple of other people know the title. But it's a big secret because in my Kingdom of Fron series, the name of the main character is part of the title. And so it's been a huge secret right now who that main character is. But it's coming soon, I promise. So as a full answer to that, I keep a lot of what I'm writing secret. I think sometimes it drives fans crazy, and I'm sorry about that, but it is part of my process. For example, after Breaking Iselda came out, everyone was dying for a sequel. I did promise there was a sequel coming. I was working on a sequel. I think beta readers already had the sequel, but I made them wait to find out who the character was and where the book was and what the name of it was and things like that. And honestly, my own husband didn't know the title to the second book. He does know the third, but don't ask him because he won't tell you. I really keep all of that under wraps. I think most of the reason why is because I am an irrational perfectionist, and I am terrified that I'm going to tell you something and then realize it's not right and then have to change it, and I don't want to go through that process of upsetting you or whatever. The other reason why I keep a lot of it a secret is because it might change. It really honestly might change. I don't think at this point when the book is already with betas that the third character will change, meaning I don't think who it is will change, but I do possibly still think that adjective in front of that person's name might change. Breaking Iselda was not Breaking Iselda until the last possible minute. It was Educating Iselda for a long time, and I hate that title. So I may change it. I may change this at at the last minute. By holding it off, I think I give myself the opportunity to do that. As far as actual book ideas go and like developed plots and written out, I don't share them really until I feel like they're at least a little polished and they're ready for that, or I need your feedback. So there are about, I would say, 10 people maybe who got the first 3 chapters of the magical book for me just to give me some feedback. Those first 3 chapters had gone through a lot and been polished before I pushed that out. And I will share ideas with certain people. So I have a group of betas that I turn to. I have a writing group that I turn to. Of course, my husband is a good sounding board because he's a reader. And so I do have people I bounce ideas off of, but really a lot of what I do is kind of cloaked and shrouded in secret. Anticipation drives some people crazy, and it could be a long time till that book is really out. So I think that's why I do that. Okay, question number 7. Have any of your book ideas originated with a dream or a nightmare? I don't think so. Short scenes and stories in my blog, yes, absolutely. Short scenes and stories in my blog have originated with, I don't want to call them dreams and night, that's not true. It's more like daydreams. So I'm an active daydreamer. I imagine things all the time, and I put myself in crazy and insane situations and daydream about them. Those absolutely become books. But as far as like putting my head on a pillow, going to sleep for the night, wake up in the morning, and boom, I have a story idea, I don't think that's ever happened. I have dreamed about things I am currently writing, but that's usually after I've already come up with the idea and started writing it. Number 8. Have you ever had an idea for a story and then seen a similar premise in a book, TV, or movie? Yes. I actually had a moment of panic way back when I was writing what would become Breaking Iselda. First draft writing, like this is the beginning of the idea. I had never really considered myself a writer before, although I had finished 2 other books that are currently shelved and who knows what will happen with them. But this was an idea that I really felt had something, and I was really excited, and I'd already started, I told you world building came first, so I had already started outlining the ideas for the world that would become the Kingdom of Fron. And a beta reader, a friend of mine, handed me a book and said, you should read this, it's so good, and it's like all the rage right now in young adult, and you said you were writing young adult, you should read it. It was Divergent. If you've ever read Divergent, you know that Divergent starts with a world that has 5 factions, I think they're called, and each faction has a different character trait. Internal panic ensued, right? Because if you've ever read Kingdom of Fron, the Kingdom of Fron books have 5 realms, and each realm has a character trait, and so I sort of panicked. Thankfully, the similarities of those ended literally right there. Like, my panic lasted 2 pages, and then I kept reading and realized these have absolutely nothing in common. So my panic was short-lived, but yes, that panic has happened. Question 9. Have any of your favorite movies or TV shows sparked ideas for scenes in your book? I'm sure they have, right? I'm sure they have, but I can't think of any right now. Oh, wait, that's not entirely true. Okay, so I am a huge fan of the TV show Friends. I have all 10 seasons on DVD, so I'm okay with them taking it off Netflix because I own them. But I'm a huge fan of Friends. So I would say that Angela, one of the main characters from my magical YA that I'm working on right now, Angela's group of friends is seriously inspired by that core group of friends. So they're very, and I mean this with love, they're very clingy and they are very codependent, and they're cute and they're adorable and you like them, but you get the sense that they need each other for everything. And so that plays an important part in the story, and it was sort of inspired by that codependent group of friends from my favorite TV show. And finally, number 10. What's the oldest or first story idea that you remember coming up with or writing down? Oh gosh, that is a hard question. I have been writing since I could write. I think my first one that I remember writing was probably, I think I was in 5th grade, and I wrote a story about a principal who was stealing things and got caught by a group of kids who were investigating. I don't remember anything about the story other than that, and I'm pretty sure the title was The Principal's Secret. And I remember it won an award of some kind at the school. That's all I remember. So that was the first one that I think I actively remember writing, but honestly, it probably wasn't the first. But it's the first one I remember. Okay. That's really it for me and the answers to the story idea tag that I'm kind of trying to bring back today. I'm going to tag a few people whose channels I like to watch because I love when they talk about their works in progress. I love when they talk about their writing, and I kind of want to know what they're working on right now. So I'm going to tag a few people, but if I subscribe to your channel or if you're watching this and you write, I would love to know what you're working on. I'd love for you to take the challenge. But specifically, I'm going to call out Chris over at Christine Writer, Alyssa Markins, Nina from Nina's Nook, and Amanda Kiefer Dunn, because I love to listen to what you ladies are writing about. So let me know if you do the tag. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next time. Bye.